It is Monday, and I've got a glass of wine and some notes, and I just watched Power Rangers Beast Morphers, so let's talk about it. And don't worry, I'm going to mention the fact that I have a new camera. I filmed my Thursday video before this, where I actually talk about my new camera, and so I realize now that that was probably pretty silly, because this video is going up first. So I have a new camera, ladies and gentlemen. Learn more about it in my Thursday video. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am Britt, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should, because I talk about geeky things, and today we're going to talk about Power Rangers Beast Morphers, as we do every Monday. Power Rangers Beast Morphers. I have my ups and downs with this season, or this, like I said, I know it's 2 seasons, but this season. I have my ups and downs with it, but we're here. Let's talk about it, okay? This episode is called Cruisin for Bruisin. So obviously this episode is going to be all about the Beast Spots, specifically Cruz. I was trying to think of a funny thing to say, but at the end of the day, let's just call a spade a spade. We realize this is going to be a Beast Spots episode, which, I don't know. Okay, wait, sorry. If you want to skip the full episode recap, hit this timestamp. You will be brought to just my thoughts on this particular episode. So we open up with target practice. Cruz has put together some targets, and the Rangers decide to make some deals, make some bets on who can make the best shot, which ends up not being even part of the episode at all. It just happens to be a way to fill time in this scene. So they all hit the targets perfectly, and nobody owes anybody any milkshakes. And then Cruz says, well, actually, here, let's try this one, and brings in a moving target. And nobody can hit this target. And everybody's like, no, this target's impossible to hit, because it's impossible to hit a moving target. It's fine. Judlin, so glad you're not going to be here anymore. So then Cruz is asked, did you even test it? And Cruz starts it up and takes a blaster himself and hits it right away. And he goes, see, it's not impossible. This gives the idea to Devin that maybe it's a good idea for Cruz to go out and join them on the field. Who saw right away from the very beginning that this was going to be a bad idea? Also everybody else, because everybody else was like, that's not a good idea, especially Nate. But Devin convinces Nate anyway to create something for Cruz to use out on the battlefield, so Cruz can go and join them on the battlefield, because he is such a great shot. From one shot, mind you. Judlin! I know, you're on my Chiplin now, I don't care. You're still Judlin. You just use a different name. You care less about your job when you're Chiplin, I guess. This is when we meet Ben and Betty for the first time in this episode, and you know, they're funny, so they have to have some kind of funny thing happen. This moving target that was a Tronic, I wrote it down, that way I would remember, ends up just kind of gliding down the hallway while they are mopping, and they realize that this is a loose Tronic in the base, and so they go to try and stop it, and then Ben ends up being pulled for quite a while down the hall. And that's because, you know, slapstick is always funny. No matter what you do, just make it slapsticky and it's funny. Inherently funny does not mean always actually funny. Just let them... It's fine. But then Ben and Betty get this cool idea that they could use this Tronic to create a new mopping thing so that they don't have to continue to mop, because they are above mopping. And that's it. That's literally their entire thing until the very end of the episode. So there we go. We're done with Ben and Betty now. Let's move on. Scrazzle has created a new monster, and this particular monster is meant to absorb technology, making it stronger every time it absorbs new technology, which, you know, is actually kind of a good idea. But of course, Evil Roxy and Evil Blaze, Robo Roxy and Robo Blaze, think that this is obviously not a good idea, and they're kind of like, they don't have much of a role in this episode, which makes me sad, but at the same time, they're just great, and I love every time they're on the screen. So it's funny, because I went from Ben and Betty, who I hate every time I see on the screen, to Blaze and Roxy, who I just automatically adore when they're ever on screen. So, you know, yin and yang. This monster attacks right around the time that Nate is putting together some blasters for Cruz. They're made out of wheels, which is very Cruz-y. So then they all go off. But Nate stops Devin and says this isn't a good idea. He hasn't had any combat training yet. Please, let's have combat training before we bring him out onto the field, because Nate is smart. Devin convinces Nate yet again that it should be fine, so they go out to fight, which, who could have seen this was a bad idea? Also everybody else, but Devin is a good Red Ranger in the sense of the type of Red Ranger that tends to be more loose cannon, more on the notion of power equals better, and that just happens to be Devin's character. For all the people who do not like Mystic Force because of lack of character development, why do you like this season? If you do, you might not. This one actually has no character development. So in the middle of the fight, Cruz ends up shooting down some Tronics very quickly and very easily, just like the moving target. And the monster realizes that this technology needs to go and needs to be a part of him. So he blasts Cruz and blasts his blasters away from him. And as Cruz is trying to get back at them, he is absorbed by the monster. And of course, this is a real problem because when he absorbs technology, he becomes stronger. So he just absorbed a B-spot. How do you think that's gonna go? Not well, mind you. Oh, anyway, the Rangers are basically defeated for a hot second. You know, the times where they lose their battles. And this was one of the ones where they lost their battle. Of course, both Nate and Devin are kind of blaming themselves. Nate because he should have, actually forced more on the combat training, and Devin because he wanted Cruz out there at any point. Zoe being the quintessential voice of reason, but to a fault, goes, it's nobody's fault. Zoe, you're wrong. It is most definitely Devin's fault. This is when Devin comes up with the idea that maybe it's a cool idea for the Rangers to combine with their B-spots, because he got the idea from the monster absorbing technology, becoming stronger. What if they absorbed their B-spots and became stronger as well? Nate comes up with a really cool idea about how to turn their B-spots into armor, and starts working on that immediately. Also as a way of figuring out how to save Cruz from the monster. Nate creates a way to digitize the B-spots, and so they digitize the other two, and the technology isn't quite ready yet, but the B-spot attacks anyway, so the Rangers have to go kind of unready. And so they go, and this monster is so incredibly powerful that it's just very hard to be able to even think about destroying him. When finally the armor is ready, and then Devin decides now is the time to go and save his B-spot, so they all work together and they are able to save Cruz, and then they end up putting on the armor, which makes them ever more powerful, and it makes it so that they can destroy the monster. Along with that, we're kind of learning how the new armor will kind of give them more power. It looks like Devin can become really, really fast. He also has this cheetah move where he runs through some rings of fire, it looks like, and that was kind of the finishing blow on the monster. It looks like Ravi can put his hand on something and grab something solid from inside of it. So he put his hand on a building and pulled out like a metal beam, put his hand on the road and pulled out a huge tar rock. Zoe was able to walk on the air around and then attack. So I don't understand how that relates to a jackrabbit, but maybe there's some kind of lore in Japan about jackrabbits that I do not know about. But for some reason, she's in the sky with her Zord. She's in the sky. Let me know if there's something I'm missing about either maybe the Sentai that does not spoil anything, or something about folklore with jackrabbits in Japan that maybe I'm just not privy to, but I just feel like everything about her powers is just very strange considering she's a jackrabbit. But anyway, we got to learn initially what these powers are going to be. I'm sure we're going to learn more as time goes on, as we do with these battleizer type powers that the Rangers sometimes get. So this is one of those episodes where we didn't end up with a Zord fight. This was basically just to introduce the new armor, and there was no Zord fight in this particular episode, so that was interesting. We go right into obviously Scrazzle being beat up by Evox for losing, and the Rangers kind of having their after-school special moment of the I'm sorry I made you go fight when you probably weren't ready to do so. And Cruz goes, you know what, I think I like the idea of becoming your armor instead. And then Ben and Betty walk in to show their new thing. Now, for some reason, the Rangers shot out confetti. And so now the room is filthy, and Ben and Betty show off their new creation, this Tronic that can mop, and says, clean up the confetti. It starts cleaning up, then it turns around and points right at everybody else because everybody has confetti on them. And they all run away screaming, even though 5 of them are Power Rangers. And it's one Tronic. It's fine. Judlin, it's fine. It's fine. And then at the very end, Cruz saves everybody from this rogue Tronic by blasting him with one of his blasters that Nate made him in that episode. There you guys have it. That is the episode of Cruisin' for Bruisin'. And you guys kind of get an idea. What's funny is I actually kind of like this episode. Didn't seem like it, did it? No, I actually kind of do like this episode. It was pretty good. I think a lot of the good stuff outweighs some of the bad stuff, and a lot of the bad stuff is just stuff that I kind of talk about a lot. So let's start with the bad. Let's just start with Ben and Betty. Just because I talk about it every single episode. But I think this episode I might actually talk about one of the reasons why I really don't like them. And I think I touched on this before. But if they're going to make very cartoony characters, they needed to not put them in tan outfits. Judd, let's have a little... I know you're not going to continue as the Power Rangers showrunner, but like, let's have a little chat. Okay, so to make cartoony characters work, you have to make them look cartoony. Look at Steve Urkel. Good examples of this in Power Rangers would be Bulk and Skull, Fran from Jungle Fury, Capri, and what's the other one's name from Power Rangers Ninja Storm? Even Cassidy and Devin at least stood out with their outfits in Dino Thunder. They were the more kind of muted cartoony characters, but you make Ben and Betty so cartoony, and it's just very poorly done in many ways, mostly in the sense of they do not look cartoony. And so when you have cartoony characters that don't look cartoony, the other characters look more cartoony because they are in bright colors. One's a robot, the other 3 are also robots, but they're not utilized as much. We're going to get to it. You cannot have people wearing tan and then make them cartoony. It's just so bad. Just bad. I mean, even, like, I talk a lot about how the actors are not ready to play such slapstick characters, which is also true, but this episode, it just became so apparent to my brain. The tan, them basically blending in with the set, like, it just, they look like set dressing. They don't look like characters. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Let's talk about the B-spots. I like the B-spots. I've never disliked them. I think that they're kind of silly to have because they're not utilized. And this episode was nice to see them being utilized for an episode, but it's so far and few in between for them to ever be utilized properly. And I just don't think that they are being utilized very well, especially season 2. I know we're only on episode 5, but like, for real, we're not utilizing the B spots, and we could be. It's like they are just there to fill space, and I know they come from the Sentai, but I gotta think that the Sentai uses them a little bit more than that. No spoilers, please, about the Sentai. I only watch what is legally available in the United States, but I gotta think that they're utilized better in the Sentai. Judd, you could have taken some notes from the Sentai. Disney always did, from what I understand. I have not seen any Disney Sentais yet, but I've understood that Disney took notes from the Sentai and used some of those concepts. And then the armor. For such a big build-up in the episode to the armor, plus like the Sentai shots of revealing the armor, underwhelming. Let's be real. It's really hard to tell when it's Sentai, but I knew what was Sentai today because in this episode, mostly because, and I forgot to talk about that in the last one too, the last video, was there was all of a sudden, like, they've been really good at matching Sentai the last few years, and there was this one moment where it was really badly matched in the last episode, and I just noticed it. I forgot to mention that in not last week's episode last week's video, because last week's video didn't exist because we took a break for a week. But the week before that, when I talked about that, oh, man, that was just so badly matched. And they've usually been pretty good about that lately, so I was kind of surprised. But this particular one, not that it didn't match very well, it matched just fine. It actually matched beautifully. I wouldn't have noticed had I not noticed the Japanese writing on the road, but that's just me. But yes, I knew it was Sentai because of that, but it's really hard for me to tell when it's Sentai anymore. I kind of have to guess, but that's when I figured out that it was actually Sentai. But yeah, the armor was just underwhelming. I wasn't into it. Not into it. I mean, it's fine, and it'll be fine, but I'm also rewatching Jungle Fury where they just got their, like, Jungle Master, and it's so much better. So maybe it's just that. You know, I just feel like every other Sentai that has the, like, special armor, it's just done better than it is in this. Let's talk about some good. Let's talk about the fact that Kelson Henderson got to go out there and fight again. Hello. So I'm waiting for the season where they actually allow Kelson to be a Power Ranger. I get it. He technically was in Ninja Steel, but that was for like 5 minutes. I want Kelson to be a Power Ranger for real. He has been in Power Rangers for so long. His first season that he was like a main character was SPD. Come on. And he was also technically a Power Ranger in that too, but only in a dream sequence, but whatever. It's fine. He's still the Orange Ranger in my heart. But still, I think it's time for us to start a petition to Hasbro, to their new showrunner, to make Kelson Henderson an actual Power Ranger. But let's just appreciate the fact that Kelson got to go out there and fight today. One of the other things I just thought was really cool was the shot. Oh gosh, the framing in this particular episode was actually really good. I am that kind of person that looks at framing because that's part of criticism, is looking at every aspect. And I don't always mention framing because a lot of times, especially in Power Rangers, framing is not something noteworthy because it's just framing. It's just how it's framed. And I feel like this episode really kind of upped its game with the framing, because the framing shot of when Cruz was being absorbed, when he turned to Devin, pleading with Devin to save him, was just so cool. It was like actually kind of moved me a little bit. It was really cool. I really liked it. There's another shot too, another piece of framing at the end when Evox is kind of beating up Scrozzle, and Scrozzle asks, "How did you know?" And then the framing of him turning and revealing Roxy and Blaze was so beautiful. Like, oh my gosh, the framing from this episode was actually pretty noteworthy and pretty good. I actually really enjoyed it. Disney always did really well with framing, but ever since Saban took back over, framing has not been great. Disney was always really good at framing, but ever since Saban took back over, I feel like framing was not something that people really cared much about anymore. I mean, there were some seasons that had good framing, but noteworthy framing, there's never really been bad framing per se, aside from just like, I remember like the Artist one where they had the monsters like, and nobody noticed. Like that kind of framing, sightline framing, not great, but the actual art of framing, I think, was done really, really well a lot of times in Power Rangers, but just not moved me like enough, if that makes sense. But yeah, pretty good, pretty well done. Enjoyed it. And again, just reiterating the fact that I liked having the B-Spots around. I wish that they would actually utilize the B-Spots a bit more, but they just don't seem to want to. I don't know if it's just because they don't know how to write the B-Spots in, because I know that they were kind of stuck with them because of the Sentai, but it would be nice if they actually utilized them properly, but I don't know if they're ever going to, so we'll see how that goes. We're going to see how that goes indeed. So there you guys have it. Those are my thoughts on Power Rangers Beast Morphers, episode 5 from season 2. Cruisin for a Bruisin. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode in the comments below. Did you guys like it? Did you guys not like it? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys all next week. Bye! Actually, I'll see you guys on Thursday if you guys watch all my content. There's a Power Rangers video next on Thursday, so stay tuned. So let's chat about the quarantine. How's everybody doing? How's your mental health? Mine's dwindling real fast. I'm actually quarantined from my parents. I am only in my unit, or I leave the house to go to work, and which doesn't even have to happen anymore because now I get to work from home starting Monday, because our governor called stay-at-home order. So I get to stay at home. But luckily, starting Monday, I get to start going back up into their unit. One of my coworkers is diagnosed with COVID-19, so cheers.